it's been lovely to hear all the speakers today, and I think what's very clear to me is that customer experience has mattered now more than ever, right? Sandeep just now talked about the importance of the first interaction, and I couldn't agree more. I think there's three things, right? First, the bar is much higher on customer experience. Second, it's a great way to differentiate versus your competitor, and third, it has a direct impact on the bottom line. So I think the choices are clear. The how is very difficult, and that's hopefully what we'll get out of our panelists today. Can I just ask each of the panelists to give a quick one-line introduction?
Hi, this is Niyati Agarwal. I'm Director of Product Strategy at Gupshup.
Hey, hi, this is Shailesh Jain. I'm a co-founder and director at Mirraw.
Hi, my name is Anuradha. I head Poshmark India Marketplace.
Hi everyone, I'm Aakash, Anand. I lead a company called IDAM House of Brands, which owns a few brands like Bella Vita, Bevzilla, Springwell Mattresses, GNC, and Guardian Pharmacy.
Hi, good afternoon. Abhay, Batra this side. I'm co-founder at Clovia.
Hello everyone, this is Jatin. I head the brand Vedix. We're also gifting partners today, so if you have any feedback on the products, feel free to reach out to me directly. Thanks.
Okay, great. So Aakash, the first question for you. Can you talk about a great customer experience that you've come across as well as a terrible one?
Great. So I think customer experience is very, very important, especially in today's time and age, especially for D2C brands and brands who are coming in retail. A quick example of one customer experience which led to a very young founder become very successful was, I'll just take example of one of our portfolio companies, was Bevzilla Beverages that makes coffee and tea and other beverages. I remember when I found out about the company, I placed an order to test them. The moment I placed an order and got my product, these are very innovative coffee cubes, I think within a few hours of receiving the product, I got a call from their call center team who quickly walked me through to how to create 4 fantastic coffee recipes with the product I'd received, right? Along with asking my feedback with how did I like it, any problems in deliveries, any problem in the product, etc. So I think giving that personalization and care to a consumer really, really helps any brand to prosper. And as a result of that, I think that one episode for us was the decision maker for us to acquire that brand and take it from where it was earlier this year to where it is now as one of the leading D2C coffee brands in the country. Worst experiences, there are many. I mean, I've owned many terrible customer experiences in my own brands. When we started Bella Vita in the beginning, we weren't very consumer focused in terms of, so for example, when we used to get 1,000 orders a day, we would just pack them as 1,000 orders, not realizing that every single order for a consumer is just one order, right? So I think we've made a lot of mistakes in consumer experiences where we did not offer any kind of a feedback support to start with, so even though not really having a great packaging or a unboxing experience. So I think consumer experience is the most crucial in setting up of any retail or a D2C brand in today's day and age.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think pre-purchase as well as post-purchase, it matters. Abhay, what about you with Clovia? What have you seen?
Ours is so Clovia is a lingerie company, so our experiences are very, very different and very interesting in that way. The best experience to me in all of the years that Clovia has been around, once I was at the warehouse one day, band baji hui thi, and bridal season, same season, and I got a call at the warehouse because that's the number that was currently going on the barcode. Another worst experience happens. Very early days, 7 years back maybe, and there's a boy on the other side saying, you delivered to my girlfriend's house, but you delivered it to her mom, and I sent lingerie. So, and we solved it by calling the girl's mom saying we delivered it by mistake, it wasn't for your daughter. So that was one of the better funny experiences. The worst experience for me personally has been it's been 4 years my marriage, and almost 4 years, and I am still to turn my wife into a Clovia customer. Last 2 months back, I finally decided enough is enough. I bombarded her wardrobe, removed every other brand and just put 100, 200 pieces of Clovia saying, ab yahi hai jeevan, isi ko jeena. So that was one worst experience. If I have another 30 seconds, one experience that we are trying to change the market here in a way that we don't open the box while taking a return back. So, and that's something no other brand is doing. Of course, the category is intimate, and although we've tried to create foot soldiers on the ground, last mile delivery, women last mile deliverers, but it's a hard one to pull off. We're still trying. We will always keep trying, but that all the other brands are doing it, even the marketplaces. But that's something. But the trust that comes along when you don't see what she's sending back. Of course, there are frauds, etc. But the trust is phenomenal, so it's worth the cost.
Very interesting. Anuradha, you've probably been a buyer and seller, and seen multiple sellers do this. What's been your experience?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting, I love the anecdotes that were shared. So one of the good customer experience examples that comes is something very recently where we also do a lot of, so just for people who don't know, Poshmark is a peer-to-peer marketplace, so which means you and I can buy and sell from each other. This is about fashion, accessories, apparels. It's like anybody's dream. A lot of women out here who have things sitting out of your closets should just come to Poshmark, list it, and maybe you'll find buyers for that as well. So one of the experiences that stands out is a recent event which we were doing in Delhi, and there was this user. She was a very enthusiastic user, and she said, I really love Poshmark. I've been on it for about a week, and I'm very addicted, and I spend about 2 hours. It looks like I'm spending more time on Poshmark than I spend on maybe Instagram. And she said, but it would have been nice if you had this. And there was a associate sitting along with her, and we do something called as closet consulting. And she said, have you tried this feature? She said, oh yeah, this is what I wanted. And then she said, oh, but you know what, I would have loved as a seller if you had this. And the associate, a young enthusiastic one, jumped in and said, yes, have you tried this? So I think over about 4 or 5 such features, there were so many things that intuitively the seller was asking and the app was able to, respond to her. So I think it's twin-edged, of course, because it's also very rapidly changing. So as long as you're able to fulfill so many things that the sellers want, I think the experience is going to be great. So it was very fulfilling to see that the app was so tailor-made. It was, something the sellers liked. Something that we don't like, or an experience which I don't think, from personal example, like he said, I think we've all been consumers. But I would think there's no bad experience. There's only experiences to learn from. And as consumers, we have been in a position where we, these days use several mediums to escalate issues and complaints. But I would think, times when we've got feedback about the way an item came packaged or the way an item was shipped, we take it as an input to maybe educate the sellers and buyers more. So yeah, I think there are no bad experiences. There are only things to learn from. Very interesting. And Niyati, you're with Gupshup, so you've probably worked with a lot of retail clients. Would love to hear about your experiences there.
Sure. Maybe what I say would be very unconventional, but I think one bad customer experience which I always find is, these companies only giving freebies. They'll not reply for 4 hours or maybe 2 days altogether, and then they'll say, okay, here is the discount coupon or a voucher, and yeah, that's about it. Though, of course, we understand that this is important in the marketing phase or a customer acquisition phase, it's not something that you cover up your customer experience and say, okay, here is a freebie and that's about it. But on the other hand, I think what Sandeep was mentioning in the previous session, a good customer experience is when you talk about an omni-channel strategy and you include that part where, your customers are on all channels and, as the cliche line goes, be where your customers are and not bring the users to where you want them to be. So I think that's part of a good customer strategy and a customer experience for me.
Got it. Very interesting. So now, how does customer experience actually form part of your business strategy? Shailesh, maybe I can get this from you. What kind of challenges have you faced in really becoming your customer's champion?
Sure. I think when you're starting with a journey to actually deliver great, exceptional customer experience, the first sort of challenges are to actually figure out what a customer journey looks like. The problem is that most of us are capturing some kind of feedback. Most of these are anecdotal. Like Net Promoter Score is one of the widely tracked metric. I think everybody is tracking that. But NPS is something that happens to us. We really don't know what to do. NPS sometimes goes down, NPS sometimes goes up. I think being able to move from NPS and able to compartmentalize it into particular departments. For us, that was one of the biggest challenges we faced in a company. Because while we were tracking NPS, and NPS would go up, it would go down, and everybody would be worried, but nobody knew what to do about it. Because we would look at feedback, and we would do some kind of patchy solutions here and there. I think looking at the entire customer journey, then we started designing, and each department had its own input metrics that would actually bubble up to NPS. And then we started talking in terms of input metrics for the department. Things started changing then. So, and there is while everybody wants to deliver on great customer experience, I think as a business, and we are a bootstrap business, and for us, unit economics matters a lot. Like one-day delivery is obviously an exceptional customer experience versus 3-day delivery, for instance. The problem is that what's the value equation, then you need to get it right for the customers. So having the right set of trade-offs built in, understanding the entire customer journey, segregating out to the departments as such, and then talking about input metrics versus with the department, and having that sort of religiously customer experience kind of immersion programs inside the company itself. And it starts right at the top. I mean, as a bootstrap founder, you would be really, really focused in terms of revenue, profitability, what does the NPS look like. But if my business reviews, my monthly business reviews, weekly reviews only look at top line, bottom line numbers, it's going to be really, really hard for an organization, for head of departments to really focus on voice of customer and actually ensuring that they are actually focused on the great customer experience. So setting the right tone as a CEO is actually pretty important. And I think that has been our journey as such.
Got it. And this is about breaking down, let's say, the customer experience from a discovery to a purchase into certain episodes and then tracking the numbers. Did they go up?
Yeah, of course. And because I think what ends up happening is that each department now is started to focus on their metrics. They are not like, everybody's not gathered in a room and looking at an NPS score, because you can't really do much by looking at an NPS score. And once everybody is accountable to their own score, so for instance, for a customer support department, what is the percentage of refunds that you can process in 1 day versus 3 days, right? And then it starts becoming very operational. So this is not something that's up in the air. Now they know exactly these are the metrics that can get tracked. And everybody then becomes accountable, much more accountable then.
Got it. Anuradha, what about you? How has customer experience formed part of your customer strategy?
So for Poshmark, we are a community-based marketplace. So for everything for us, I mean, if you know about Poshmark in the US or in Canada, where we've been for about a decade or so, everything is about people. It is a community-driven organization. So the entire product, the experience is really built on experience. The whole journey of how a buyer to a seller or a seller to a buyer entirely thrives on how the experience, the experience that one feels. So for us, what really matters is when a buyer comes onto the platform, how easily they're able to see the product or buy it from a complete stranger. You're talking of people who may not have known each other, don't have much knowledge about the seller, but are actually purchasing from each other. So we have these cute concepts called, love notes that the seller sends, and sometimes the buyer writes back saying, hey, I received the item, it's in perfect condition, 5 on 5 stars, etc. I think these are all, like he mentioned, they're all metrics. We of course measure them, and they're all published, and it also helps the community to shop better and safely. But I think more than everything else, it finally boils down to the fact that there's a human connection. And the human connection really thrives on experience. So if I've had a great experience, if I'm taking back something which is as an experience very rich for me, I'll come back to the platform for sure. I'll come back maybe next time as a seller. I'll come back as a buyer. So for us, I think the whole flywheel of the buyer and seller, the activation, the engagement, the kind of core business that we do on account of so many people listing several items a day, everything really thrives on experience. So I think for us, it's very core. One of our core values is, in fact, lead with love. And we often joke about this, that how often do you use the word love in a setting like a corporate or in a goal setting? But for us, I think we really imbibe that. We believe that unless and until you're able to give that kind of an experience to your users, you're not going to be here for the long run. So yeah, I think it's at the very core of what we do.
Very interesting. Jatin, what about you? So I know, in the back room, there was a lot of customer feedback that was coming in. How do you think about customer experience and strategy?
So it's actually very interesting because in case of Vedix, we start out with a personalized questionnaire that customers have to answer to get certain SKUs that are made sort of suited to them. But interestingly, there's research on that the most relevant experience is the last one in anyone's mind. I know any consumer, you, me, a consumer, right? There's a lot of research behind that, and that's why probably traumatic events seem less painful in hindsight because they're overshadowed by better experiences over the last. So, and unfortunately, in our case, since we are efficacy-driven personal care products, the last experience the customer has is of the usage and probably a month of usage. And let's say if that is not well, no matter how good the experience was at the front end, the website, the answers, the delivery, the price, the unboxing, everything goes for a toss. So, and we are very cognizant of the fact. And as an organization, the only metric that we track and really focus on is retention rate, because our customers, and we have one of the industry leading retention rates. And on an average, Vedix customer buys from us 3.5 times in a year, which is great for a single brand sort of a website, right? Now, so it's very important for us to make sure the customer experience through the lifetime of the customer is good. Now, what do we do to ensure that? Is that we use obviously a lot of technology. So when you buy from Vedix, after about 7 days, you get a questionnaire asking how was the sensory experience, right? Did the oil, did the shampoo clean, whatever. And then after about 27, 28 days, you actually get another automated questionnaire asking you how was the user experience, did you see any changes? But another interesting fact, more than 50% of our customers are from tier 3 cities, right? So they probably are not really someone who would answer the questions online. So we also have a customer service outbound team that will call them up and then repeat the same questions. All of this is to ensure that no matter how the product experience was, the brand experience is never diluted. They always feel that, which is true, they always feel that Vedix is a customized brand that delivered products that are suited to them, and then sort of followed up with a call to understand how the product did for them. And in cases where they say that, again, the shampoo is not really not working for me, we actually have alternative formulations that are developed for cases like those where we replace those shampoos for free of cost and send them a different one, right? Or replace the regimen completely. So it's very imperative. I mean, the customer experience is the driving force behind any D2C brand, especially more so for the ones like us who are completely selling through our own website with absolutely no offline presence, because we have to rely on their sort of loyalty to create a sustainable P&L that can stand on its own in the long run. Yeah.
Got it. And so, Aakash, there's a number of brands that you're running. How do you manage, a strategy for all of those different brands, right? I know that you need to get to the customer, but individually we've heard a lot about personalization, we've heard about community-driven organizations. So, how do you go about doing this?
Well, all the brands that we manage, these brands are very similar in what we do. These are all very consumer-centric, D2C approached brands with consensus, conscious price, value-driven products. So the great thing that works for us, is that our entire playbook is very, very similar. So just the same way that we acquire a customer for a Bella Vita and then upsell and then cross-sell other products is a similar way in which we acquire a consumer for a Bevzilla. The same way we acquire a consumer for Springwell mattresses, and the same way we acquire a consumer for the GNC health and nutrition brand. The science behind getting consumers on board, scaling them, having a great LTV is very, very similar across every single channel or across every single brand or a product that you go through. So once you crack that playbook or that formula, I think it's very easy to replicate that across multiple brands and multiple portfolios of products.
Got it. Interesting. So basically having a repeatable model that you can then apply to each of your clients. And do you then modify or tweak this repeatable model as you learn more from each of your brands?
Of course. Like, for example, we know that a consumer in our FMCG brands would buy a product almost once every 15 days. Whereas that same consumer in a different brand, maybe like a shampoo or a perfume, would buy a repeat sale in about 6 months. So the way to target them, the way to reapproach them, the way to The retargeting activities is very, very different, but the science remains the same. You do it less frequently, but in the same way as you would do for any other brand.
Got it. Okay. So Niyati, with Gupshup, and you're dealing with a bunch of clients, how do you help them with their strategy around customer experience?
Yeah, so of course, we're all aware that customer experience needs to be part of business strategy. Experiences sell better, maybe even better than products now. What we tell our clients typically is do not make the mistake of, selling or maybe selling the same kind of experience across. It's not a one-fit-all solution. So, when we talk about a customer who's coming in from Instagram, let's say, what the customer is doing on Instagram is very different from what that customer or maybe the same customer is doing on LinkedIn. So when the channels are separate, the timings at which users or consumers visit that channel are different. You cannot have the same side of strategy. Along the same lines, people come in at different phases. So there is a customer life cycle from marketing, commerce, and support. And these three pillars, which basically form the core of business, but the strategy for customer experience is very different. A marketer has to only focus on telling more about the product, or maybe, like I was talking about, give loyalty points and just, engage your audiences. Whereas when we talk about from a commerce-based solution where the user is making a choice between products of your competitors and maybe the different products that you offer, the experiences are more where the customer wants to feel that they are valued. And they want to feel like the conversations are personalized, the brand knows what they are selling to the customers. And there, of course, like we say, data is very important. But it's not in a way where, every time you talk to a customer, you ask a bunch of questions. What differs is the same kind of conversation that you're having with your customers, how you can derive insights from the same data and then use that data to provide a more personalized or, experience and meaningful conversation. And I think that's what makes the whole difference.
Got it. So I think, we've spoken about a bunch of ideas for customer experience, but a lot of brands will face the issue of, there's obviously a trade-off, right? Brands are built on customer experience, but then it's expensive to have a good customer experience. So Jatin, I'm going to go back to you. In terms of how will customer experience then impact your, operational metrics, like a profitability, how is that impacted? Or have you had to build out, let's say, new capabilities within the team?
See, a customer is coming onto your website and buying something to solve a purpose in his or her life, right? And that really what we see is the 2-3 impediments to that purpose. One is the delivery itself, right? And number one driver of our sort of bad customer experience or customer complaints is around delivery. So we try to solve that using technology as much as possible. And delivery is not as much as, okay, I did not get the products. It's about this void in which the product is. I don't know where the product is, right? What's happening. And not everyone is as tech savvy, and we think that, we can just sort of do multiple things and go and find the status. But people generally are not that tech savvy when you talk about broadly, right? So we build technology using messages, WhatsApp, email, sometimes calls to ease that anxiety around the product delivery. Although most of the products do get delivered in 2 or 3 days. Still, sometimes there is a delay. And when you deal with thousands of orders a day, there will be this fraction of customers whose deliveries will get affected, right? So that's around delivery. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that India is a diverse country and there are a lot of vernacular differences across your customer base. So while all communication could be in English, there are a set of customers who might not really understand that as well as you think they might, right? So that's one difficulty that all brands have to solve, and we also try to provide vernacular support in our customer support interactions as much as we can by having a multilingual sort of call centers. So that's another thing. And then the next impediment to a good experience is the usage itself. Now, in categories including, let's say, lingerie or fashion or accessories, there are different experiences from the user, right? And especially in personal care, and ours is a regimen, so it's a little complicated. You have to apply oil, and the next day you have to wash it and have serum and stuff like that. So it has to be, instructions have to be very clear, communicated, maybe reinforced with video messages, and maybe a customer will call us saying that, okay, how do I really use it? It's really confusing. So effort has to go in understanding those pain points and solving them. And then there's obviously the unboxing experience, making sure the packaging is not sort of spilling over. I'm sure some of items, brands would be facing those issues. So it's really the whole suite of efforts that goes into the making sure the end-to-end customer experience is good. Only then, and the number one metric that we measure internally is retention, will get impacted, because no matter how good the product is. In fact, I get a lot of emails saying that your products are great, but your customer service sucks, and it's not a reflection on my customer support team. It's just a reflection on how complicated the whole exercise is, right? And obviously technology, right? So we had these chatbots, which are great, but then they're also complicated, because they might have all the AI, but when someone starts typing in their vernacular, it all goes for a toss. So it's probably a country like India, it's better to have menu bots that have straight forward answers to certain queries and sort of drives the discussion down to an agent when it hits a dead end. So these are, I think, finer points, but they all add up to creating a good customer experience that can sort of support a good product and drive repeatability, and therefore create a robust and sustainable P&L, in my opinion. Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm going to pick up on one point that you said about vernacular. So, what we found was that versus 2 years ago, last year, the amount of vernacular searches grew 3x. The amount of voice searches grew 5x. And when you actually look into that data, you'll find that a lot of 50% of the customers who are doing these vernacular searches are actually new to online customers. So this is expanding reach. 70% of those customers were tier 3 or below. So again, massive impact, I think, on not just on the customer experience, but the fact that you're now getting to a lot of customers because that experience has really opened the doors and made it accessible for you. So very interesting, I think, insights over there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Abhay, what about you? How has it been transformational for you?
There is, Dhruv, there is so much to talk on this bit that, but I will try and share a few data points. I will take you back again to 7 years back when we just started the brand. Our NPS was -20, and not a proud moment, but we were in hyper growth stage. Like we had just shifted our warehouse to a 20x facility, and delivery logistics in the country was going through a flux, and deliveries were new, and there was no Express B, Shadowfax, all these, everybody here knows what I'm talking about. So, and India Post, if you give them an order, they will deliver comic books rather than deliver lingerie, which has happened. And those are problems that we are still solving, because there are pin codes still where people don't go. So, today we are at an NPS of 78%, and which is higher than Amazon, Apple, Google. So we've seen 100% shift in NPS in our organization. Of course, that change happened. We fixed, and it was a matter of a few months rather than, and then we NPS as a KRA, Dhruv, I was talking to you about it, reports to me, and I'm the finance and ops guy. I'm not the product or marketing guy. So, and I've seen NPS is directly proportional to my EBITDA profitability. When my NPS goes down, my EBITDA goes down without a doubt. And I know what happened, why, and there are so many different nuances to that one simple number. And I was telling Dhruv that, and he was telling me that NPS was coined by Bain and company. So I told him now we need something more nuanced.
We like to call it the ultimate question.
Yeah. So it's such a beautiful thing that it's just the tip of the iceberg, and there is customer experience is simple, but what goes on behind it is not simple. Is starting from deliveries to your product, to your packaging, to your UI, UX, to your journeys. We have now 90 plus journeys on my website, to your customer support trainings, to your customer support, the person who speaks to the customer, their posture, whether they're sitting straight up or back, the chairs that they are sitting on, the headphones that they're using, the everything, I mean the floor that they are sitting on, we've changed everything to reach that point, and still there is so much scope that sometimes I try to pull my hair. Where is that 2% going? You know, how do I reach 80? And yeah, it's a beautiful journey, and yeah, I will share more once.
Looking forward. Shailesh, what about you? You know, how do you balance the finance versus, you know, really wanting to spend on customer experience? What kind of capabilities have you all invested behind?
Sure. I think in terms of like people and process capabilities are obvious. That's something that without those investments, it's very, very hard to get any kind of results. In terms of like, does it make sense? Should you over-index on this? Should you not? Like, it's NPS, and I have this theory, right? In India, it's going to be extremely hard, whether you're building a D2C brand or a marketplace business, unless and until you are able to really crack NPS, you'll not be able to build a profitable business. Because it's extremely hard. Facebook and Google, they've just optimized it to an extent where like they will not leave any money on the table. So until and unless you may break even and you are doing great, and you'll have to rely on LTV to actually really make a profitable business. So I wouldn't even consider it as a choice. The problem is that there is no visibility. Like the investments that you do and the returns that you get, there is no real visibility. And those are the capabilities once you build it in the system itself. People who are from a finance background are able to take much better decisions because they know the trade-offs that they are supposed to make. They know exactly, like you were saying, that NPS and EBITDA is directly correlated, right? The problem is when the visibility is not lacking, everybody is optimizing for a short-term growth. And we have gone through our own patches where we would actually just, you know, because you can just scale up really, really fast. I mean, Facebook, Google, all these guys give you a platform where you can really scale up fast, short-term profitability, you can get it. But over a long term, unless your retention is solved, unless repeat customers keep coming back in, and because you'll see that like in our experience, and I'm sure like everybody shares the experience, right? The basket sizes are different. The new customer versus a returning customer, at least there is 20-30% gap in terms of the average order value itself. In terms of like, you don't want to keep giving money again to Google and Facebook when you want, like, so if there is a repeat, then the CAC, once you've acquired a customer, you acquired customer for life, right? And that's like, depending on the person you ask, right? It could be, if you're in a growth phase, you could be spending like 30% of our overall revenue. I know people who have had like 1:1 ratio, which means that for every dollar, they're actually, for every dollar in revenue, they're spending $1 in actually marketing cost. So it's just incredibly hard to do this. The problem is in terms of visibility, if you can get the visibility in place. And like you were saying, that right, and customer experience is extremely hard to deliver because there are just so many things that you need to get right. Like for instance, Jatin was talking about delivery, right? What are the hygiene drivers for your business and what are the delight drivers? Now, even if you do delivery on time, that's like hygiene driver. Nobody's going to be delighted. It is expected. So that's like, you have to do it. And there is a significant cost and investment because depending on whether it's 1DD, 3DD, 5DD, whatever you are promising, right? You need to, what are the delight drivers? Like, and unless and until you crack the delight driver again, the repeats don't kick in because most like in a promoter or a detractor, most are sitting in the middle. They are passives. They will just switch to any other brand unless and until they are really a promoter. And so, again, like going back to basics and just trying to map the journey of figuring out all the touch points and at what touch point, what are the factors that actually can become a delight driver and focusing on that. It's an enormous task and requires significant capabilities that you need to build in the system itself, whether it's in terms of people, process, software that you need to align to. Yeah. Thanks.
Very, very interesting. And Niyati, what about you? How do you manage the strategic aspects with the financial?
Yeah, so for us, I think there's no correlation which is direct, but of course there's a lot of indirect perception that comes in, because as, like he mentioned, the delight factor, for us, it runs both ways. Our clients, our customers, all you retailers have to have that delight factor, as well as your end users as well. So there is that, vicious cycle that we get along a lot of ways. And on the same lines, this is a core conversational AI problem, because, when you talk about the various touch points that the end users are talking to you, and you're also talking about, what is the impact, that impact, or, quantifying that impact is very difficult, and that cannot be done in a human manner. You need some kind of automation to derive, what is exactly my customer wants, because many of the times the customer does not typically speak out and say, okay, I want something. It's a problem of plenty also when they say, okay, or dikhao, or what you have, what are the other options, and then you don't really know what your customer wants. And there is where AI comes in and tells you, okay, what this person made a purchase last year or last month, and this person browsed these options previously, and this is what the conversation history can tell you, or, this person comes from a specific geography, age group, demographics, all of that comes into picture, and we can predict, what is the course of conversation that can happen next, or how is that delight factor. Of course, nobody can predict that, but we can move an edge closer to that delight factor, and, that's where the finances lies, because if we can come and tell you, okay, your brand value can increase, your customer experience can increase, your follower count can increase, that's where, we make our margins and our profits, and, that goes both ways. So, yeah, I would say.
Got it. Okay, so I think, can we take one question from the audience? I think we have some time. So, anyone, any questions? I can come and hand over the mic, or someone can assist you. Yeah. Do you want to come forward?
Hi guys. You mentioned about, from Shailesh, you said there are delight factors and there are hygiene factors. Apparently, the consumers are such that if you are consistently delivering on hygiene, or consistently delivering on delight, it becomes hygiene eventually, right? So I would like to, so either way, so I just wanted to understand, either one of you can help me understand what are the delight factors in your respective businesses, especially from Clovia or IDAM or Mirraw. What are your delight factors, some of the delight factors that you use for your customer experience?
Sure. Great question. So what are the big delight factors, that you've come across? It's open to you.
Do you want me to take it first?
Sure, okay, I can go. So at Mirraw, Mirraw is a portal where we actually provide Indian lifestyle ethnic products worldwide. So one of the use cases that we actually want to get it right is customization. So for instance, for us, stitching, so we do a lot of customization. We actually have few karkhanas that we, for instance, operate itself. Being able to get some measurements and those trials, because they are setting out, it's extremely difficult. Customer understands this, customer appreciates it. When you get it right, that's actually more like a delight. And there is a back and forth that actually goes. So we have built a workflow where just this personalization itself, like for instance, this is sort of like a mode once you get it right and the system and hopefully customer body doesn't change much. You can just consistently deliver that kind of an experience to the customer. And it's more or less like a lock-in for a customer because it's really hard to get this right. So it sort of contributes to the delight for us.
Sure. Just a question to you. May I know what you do so I can answer your question better for yourself also?
Yeah, so I lead a brand called Veg Non Veg. We are into sneakers and streetwear.
Lead a brand called?
The brand is Veg Non Veg.
Okay.
It's into sneakers and streetwear. So, we get a lot of consumers who are high-end and who expect certain kind of, customer experience. And like for us, even the box of the shoe matters. And if there is a little bit of issue in the box of the shoe, that becomes a challenge for us or for our consumers.
And what is the biggest USP in your product?
Availability of the product.
Oh, brilliant. So that means your product's always out of stock.
Mostly, yes.
Great. So for a brand like us, where it's directly to do with consumer experience and how they love the product, for us, the biggest consumer delight is trials, across many of our products. Our consumers love to try for free. What else, right? So for example, with Bella Vita, if we are to send them, if a consumer places an order for a face pack, we love to send them complementing products in minis, free of cost, 2-3 products that the consumer can try and upgrade to a full-grown pack. Same with Bevzilla, we'd send, if someone buys a coffee powder, we'd send them a coffee cube or maybe a tea sachet for them to try, different products. So I think for us, in terms of consumer delight, the free trials or the chance to give the consumer to get a chance to try something apart from what they've ordered helps them get a brilliant experience and helps us upscale consumers or, upsell it to them in repeat purchases. That works for a lot of brands that I consult.
How do you go about executing these free trials? And
these are very simple. Yeah. So what we do is we do it as either flavors of the month or we do it in terms of complementing products. So for example, we know, I'll give you an example. We know that our face wash is a bestseller and we sell thousands of units of face wash per month. So we ensure that every single face wash order is sent along with a complementing face cream and a toner, right? So that completes the entire CTM routine for an audience. And we'll give them the minis with a coupon code, with a QR code saying that why don't you also start applying our 100 ml or 200 ml of the same product. And that gives us about a 7 to 8% conversion, which comes free of cost. That's far more lower than the CAC price you'll pay to a Facebook or an Insta or a Google. So works greatly.
Just one question. Do you do cross-branding as well sometimes?
Cross-selling is one of the biggest value chains or one of the biggest valuable assets that we have as a house of brands. I'll give you an example. Every single Bella Vita consumer who we know orders a product or orders something worth at least $4.99 on a prepaid order, right? We send them 2 cubes of the Bevzilla coffee for them to try the Bevzilla coffee. That gives us about an 18% conversion rate, and that comes for free. So an example, we acquired a brand called Bevzilla, the coffee brand, in April this year. By June, they were doing about 35 lakh rupees a month in additional revenue just by cross-selling on Bella Vita. So that really, and we do the same with GNC now. So any consumer consumers who order collagen in GNC get a free trial pack of the Bella Vita's Dark Circle cream and vice versa. Anyone who's buying an under eye cream in Bella Vita gets a sachet of the GNC collagen saying that अगर आप अपने dark circles को treat कर ही रहे हो तो आप साथ में GNC का collagen भी try कर लो powder, which will help you further better your skin. So cross sell works miraculously in all our businesses.
For us, okay, I'll give you a few numbers to give you a context. We are 70% tier 2, tier 3 and 60% repeat, and has been so since the beginning. We are a very intimate brand. We share a very, very intimate relationship with the woman. For us, the delight is only one, and this is our motto. We are the first one to go. A bra is typically the first one that she wears, the piece of clothing, second sin, and the last one to come out. The look on her face after it comes out is the delight that we always aim for and nothing else. And of course, there are the packaging box, the pink box, I was sitting with my neighbor. She's a mom and 2 daughters. The daughters are in college, both of them. And she didn't know what I do. I told them I'm with Clovia, and she said, wow. And they brought like 10 pink boxes, and they said, we are storing it, we are using it for random stuff. So this is, we don't realize, and this is like South Delhi. So people love boxes, and so you're bang on that boxes matter. And the other delight that we offer to a tier 2, tier 3, and a lot of people have said this during this today's chats, and what is Bharat also, I was very confused, Hindi, English, what is coming on. Bharat is, for us, Bharat has always been knowing what they want and being confident. My wife does not order a Clinique from the US now. She knows there are brands that can, give her what she wants. So that is, for us, Bharat, and how we empower Bharat in metros, outside metros, doesn't matter, but by offering the variety and the fashion that she deserves and that she wants. And affordable. So
Very interesting. I actually think we have time for one more question. So I know there were some more hands that came up. Don't worry, we won't do the grilling again. Any other questions?
There's the third row there.
Third row. Yeah. Right there.
So, hi everyone. So my question is, does bad experience ever make you doubt yourself? Bad customer experiences?
And how do you recover from that?
Yes.
I'm going to add that to the question.
You know, one thing I'd like to say, and everyone who's a startup founder here, we quit every day. Every evening we go to bed thinking, yaar, itni dikkatein. Right? So, a bad customer experience affects every startup founder the same way a troll affects a celebrity. It's as simple as that. We take everything to heart, right? And no matter how hard we try, how hard you try, how hard anyone tries, you can never make a consumer happy.
we are a sensitive set of people. Don't touch that nerve.
Correct. So yes, it does, but then it gives you the same feeling whether you can take a bad consumer experience as a demotivating factor or take it as a positive criticism and work on that and improve it. And I think that's why you'll see a lot of seasoned entrepreneurs have learned by a lot of mistakes. And सबसे अच्छा teacher जिंदगी में consumer है. आप अपने consumer से सीखते रहो, रोज sorry बोलो, रोज सीखो और वो problem repeat मत करो. So I think that's one way.
Aakash, you go to bed after a bad experience. मेरे तो घर पे भी बीवी बोलती है नहीं, I don't want Clovia. So imagine 24 hours the same cycle.
I think that's a constant struggle, right? Getting your folks to try out the product. I think bad customer experience is like a water patch on your ceiling. It doesn't look good, doesn't look pretty, but once you see it, you know there's a leakage somewhere. And it's your job to sort of go out there and fix it. And it's also feeds into the system. I'll just sort of give you in context for Vedix because we do customized products. So obviously in the beginning you start out somewhere and then you get customer feedback which is based on a bad experience saying that, okay, this is not really helping me, my hair fall is not gone, whatever, right? And then you go back to the R&D team and say that, you know, this set of customers is not really happy with the product. So that provides direction to the R&D team to to slice the TG into certain subsets and create products that are more finely suited to their demands. And that happens across the organization, right? Be it R&D or be it operations or be it marketing. The more feedback you get, see, customers share their experiences only when it's bad. No one comes out to you and say, oh, what a great product, I loved it.
That's when you get the line of reviews.
Yeah, right. And so basically what, so that helps you improve your organization, improve your products, improve pretty much everything. So I think it's an important part of the whole ecosystem. Yeah.
That's very true. So one thing, you know, for all the founders who are here or everyone running their business online especially, one thing that we've seen, the difference in an Indian market today and when we sell in the US on Amazon.com, audience maturity is really different. When you sell on Amazon.com, which is a far more mature market, or when you sell international markets, Europe, USA, you'll find a balance between consumers who are coming on board and appreciating your product or giving you positive reviews, while there'll be consumers who'll be giving you negative reviews, but with certain explanations. India mein kya problem hai na? If a person loves your product, they would not really come and write about it. They would reorder, they would recommend, but they would not be very vocal about it in terms of their reviews. But if a consumer doesn't even like a single % of what, छोटी सी भी उनको चीज़ नहीं समझ आएगी, they'll come back and just write bad product. उसके आगे क्यों है, क्यों नहीं है, क्या गड़बड़ हुई नहीं, bad product. So you will have far more negative reviews than positive ones. So don't take it to the heart. Work on building your customer experience. And there are some more years to go when the Indian audience also matures, and there's a good split between people who appreciate and people who write bad reviews about your product anyway.
Yeah, I agree. It's become a grievance mechanism rather than a actual review of the product.
No, but I also think I think the worst customer feedback is the feedback that you don't get and the customer silently drops off. The guys who actually end up giving you feedback, you have an opportunity to still retain that as a customer once you solve those issues. In fact, they are the ones who would actually become your evangelist if you really help solve that issue. The problems that we have is that most of them would actually not end up giving feedback and they would stop ordering from you and drop off. So that is, I think, a bigger problem. Like personally, I mean, when you start out, every single bad review, you'll take it really personally. And you would ensure that you'll not read that on your birthday or anniversary, right? You'll not do that. But after a point, you'll start understanding that this is, how do you use this as a mechanism to actually improve your internal service and process. Otherwise, it's very, very hard. You'll not really, so the feedback that you're getting is actually pretty good. The ones that you don't get are the more problematic area. And how do you actually devise a mechanism? How do you actually have a measurement design in place such that you are able to collect X% of feedback? And if you're not getting that X% of feedback, you know that there's something that is wrong in the measurement design phase itself. Thanks.
So Thank you. Just to round up, so aptly said, when we brought Poshmark to India about a year ago, I remember there were so many Indians who had used Poshmark in another country, in the US, and a couple of them actually came back with such robust feedback and said, you know, this doesn't work in the app, that doesn't work in the app, this is not like how it's supposed to be. And like a couple of you said, you know, it felt really bad. Sometimes it felt like, what are we doing wrong? You know, how can we do this better? And sometimes it does feel a little personal as well. But I think this is the most important point. You don't have too many customers who will come back and say, hey, great job, everything works really well. There's nobody going to give you a report card with A+. But there'll be a lot of people who will be silent and who will just uninstall your app or who will just leave or who just won't really care two hoots. The ones who are coming back and telling you are the ones who really want to be heard. So if you're hearing them, if you're maybe working on that feedback, it can maybe turn the tables. And that's something that happened with us where we went back and met those customers, understood what their pain points are. And today, fast forward a year later, they are actually what we call Posh ambassadors, who are the most, the ones who use the app the most, who sell the most, who, you know, are like mentors to the community, etc. So to look back on a journey where they started off on the most negative note and today are like evangelists for the brand, I think that's, yes, it completes the circle, but it's also to, you know, remember the first thing that no experience is really bad. If you decide that you want to learn from it, if you don't want to take it personally, I think that's the point that we should all remember. That there's nothing about you, it's not about you, your product. It's about what you can do better in the product. So yeah, I think there's also maturity that goes a long way, but yeah, I think it's all to be taken with a boulder of salt.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, panelists. Any parting words, before we go?
I think as a founder, you just need to set the right tone for the organization to drive the customer experience. Like I say that the way I do weekly reviews and monthly business reviews essentially dictates silently what are really the priorities of the organization. So if customer experience is the priority, then you need to start with the customer experience scorecard, not top line, bottom line only. So I think that's my takeaway.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great set of insights. You've been lovely, and thank you, audience, for the great questions.